Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I am well, Lake. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We have another fun episode today. We're talking about other cruise lines, or another cruise line specifically.
Right. It's almost like, think of a cruise line that's the complete opposite of a Disney cruise on some level.
In some ways not, I think. We are comparing what I would consider two premium cruise lines.
And that is their categories, correct?
And to even out the stakes here, it's also both sailings are adults only. And to discuss these sailings, we would like to bring our guest onto the show. We'd like to welcome Brielle to the show. Brielle, how are you today?
Hi, Lake. I'm well, thanks. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for filling out the form. We are excited. I do think this is a really great set of sailings to compare and contrast. We are going to be discussing a 4-night Disney Wish sailing that was sailed adults only, and then comparing that to a Virgin Voyages 4-night sailing. Brielle, why don't you first begin by telling us a little bit about your Disney and cruising background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out going to the Disney parks a lot when I was a teenager with my family. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, and we go every couple of years. One year when we were on a trip, I met my husband on a dating app in Florida, and we dated long distance, and then...
Wait a minute. No. We are not moving by that sentence. Okay, when did this happen?
Oh, this was 2015 I met him. I was at Saratoga Springs, just relaxing with my family, kind of bored, and wanted to see what people were like in the area and matched with my husband. And we didn't meet up at the time. I flew back to Canada. We started talking for a few months, and then he flew to meet me in Canada a few months later, and have been together ever since, coming on almost 9 years. So.
Stop it right now.
Yeah.
And so he lived in Orlando?
Yeah, he lived in Titusville, but very close to Orlando. Yep.
And then he moved to the Pacific Northwest with you?
Yes, we now live in Seattle, so we have moved around a lot. Yeah, but we're closer to my family in Vancouver, which I love. So
this is the most fun fact that ever has been released on a podcast episode. So right here, my favorite. Lake, do you know that Dave and I met on Match.com?
I did know that, actually.
Yeah, to make it work, I applied for the Canadian Culture Representative program at Epcot and got into that. So I worked for a year in the Canada Pavilion as a server at Le Cellier, and then transferred my work visa to a marriage visa. It was a really cool experience. So awesome. Would highly recommend it to anyone, since they hire people from all of the countries around the World Showcase.
And then what drew you and your husband to cruising?
Yeah, so we had our wedding celebration on Vancouver Island in Canada. So already being near Vancouver, we knew about the Alaska cruises and decided that Disney would be an amazing honeymoon experience for us. So we took the Disney Alaska cruise on the Wonder out of Vancouver as our first in July 2022, and have been cruising Disney ever since. A couple other cruise lines as well, but mainly Disney, just because of our love for Disney and having celiac disease as well and having food allergies. They just handle it so well. So I know that I can trust the brand in every way.
So then turning it towards these two specific sailings that we'll be discussing. First, what led you to sailing on this 4-night on the Wish?
Yeah, so my husband decided to take a pause from his job at the time and wanted to have a little happy excitement for a bit. So we booked this Wish cruise 2 weeks before it sailed and decided to last minute go on it. We had been on the Wish once before, but he got sick on it. So we wanted to redo, and this was just a really fun experience for us to see the ship again and be able to experience all the fun things the Wish has to offer compared to the original ships.
Awesome. And then what drew you towards Virgin Voyages?
Yeah, my husband and I have been watching a YouTube creator named Kyle Pallow for about 1.5 years, who does a lot of Disney parks and cruising content. And we've seen a few of his Virgin cruises, and so they look like a lot of fun. My husband and I are both late 20s. We don't have any kids. So we thought it would be cool to experience Virgin to see what the adults only cruise is like. And so we booked a 4-night out of Miami, and we're excited to go. We also invited my sister-in-law along on a solo cabin. So it was really fun for all of us to get to cruise together.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. We are going to skip past getting to the port because Miami and Port Canaveral are not apples to apples by any means. But what can be compared is that both these cruise lines have invested pretty heavily in their port experience and what their embarkation process is like. Would you just give a little bit of comparison of the two cruise lines and kind of what you thought of each one?
Absolutely. So the Wish, we took a port transfer from the hotel, which is really easy. Because the Wish and the Magic were both docked in Port Canaveral, we were at the non-Disney terminal for the Wish because it was the bigger ship in port. We have been at the Disney terminal before, which is amazing, but this one felt really crowded because of so many people being there all at once. There were a lot of people waiting. It was still a very smooth process. Disney is great with checking everyone in and having those assigned boarding group times, so it really was very smooth. And then comparing that to Virgin Voyages out of Miami, their cruise terminal was also really cool. It was neat seeing the red everywhere, seeing the giant anchor, and they also have their own bracelets. So everyone gets one. You don't have to purchase one, which is really neat compared to Disney where you have the magic bands that you have to buy to use as your key cards on the ship. So I like that Virgin gives that to you. It hooked on really nicely. They never fell off. But they are easy to take off if you need to take them off on Virgin. So I really liked that experience, and it was very quick and easy. There was a little bit of a line to get into the ships originally, but it all went very quickly once we were on board.
Christy, do you have any thoughts on these? Because I have not sailed Virgin, but you have sailed both of these lines from both of these ports.
So one thing about Virgin Voyages is they do port arrival time much later, like much into the afternoon. The ship leaves a lot later. That does make a little bit of difference in terms of lunch and in terms of getting to the ship. So while Virgin doesn't kick you off in the morning right away, I don't love that about Virgin, that it's such a late arrival time. I loved my Virgin cruise, and we'll get into some of the other amazing things about it, but it's a loud cruise to me. And as somebody who sometimes has some
people aversion?
Yeah, it's not even, yes, but I cannot think of it, but sensory. I have some sensory issues for sure. And if I'm in that like loud, too much is coming at me, it makes me very anxious at times. They like make a big deal to say you don't have to like wait in lines or check in or do all this, but you do. It's all the same. You still have to like show your passport and do all the things. So I'm like, you're making a big deal about how it's not cruising and it's not the same, but it's literally the exact same as every other cruise line. There's like more lines though, in my opinion, by their saying that there's no lines. So that, I guess the boarding was not my favorite feature.
Well, let's take this back to you, Brielle. So we are discussing two newer cruise ships in both of these fleets. What were your overall thoughts boarding both of these ships?
Yeah, well, the Wish has that wow factor as soon as you step on. The atrium is just gorgeous with the Cinderella statue, and Disney, of course, welcoming you on board by your family name, which is just such a fun way to start off your cruise. So it's just a magnificent ship to be on. I would say they're pretty similar in terms of size and layout as well. I found the Wish originally confusing to navigate, and the Valiant Lady for Virgin I also found a little bit harder to navigate. There were some dead ends in spots. So this time on the Wish, since I have cruised it before, I found it a little easier to find my way around. And I just love the theming and the details and everything. Comparing that to the Valiant Lady, where you walk in and it feels almost like an indoor shopping mall with all of the different stores and everything. There's no grand atrium. There's kind of a little hole you can look into and see some statues down below, but it feels a little bit tighter inside when you first walk on deck. I think the layout of the ship is a little bit confusing, but the pool deck is really great. And overall, I liked the different spaces that were on board of the different bars and lounges and fun things. So really different ships in terms of what is available on board, but both really cool. And you just got to make the most of what you want from your cruise.
Always a choose your own adventure, as we say.
So with Virgin, you have to pre-book dining. So even before, and like with Disney, you can pre-book, tastings and things like that. So how did the pre-booking process go for you? And did you pre-book your dining or anything with the Wish as well?
Yeah, so with Virgin, I did pre-book our dining. I definitely wanted to secure restaurants that were okay with what I'm interested in eating, as well as with my celiac disease. I wanted options that I had researched a little bit ahead of time. So with Virgin, it's nice that all of the restaurants are included. There's no premium costs, just some upgrades if you wanted some premium items at each of the restaurants. Because it was a 4-night, we decided to dine at Pink Agave, Extra Virgin, Gun Bay, and We had booked test kitchen, but decided at the last minute that we wanted to switch it just because being a bit of a pickier eater, the menu wasn't super appealing to me. So I did try to go and change that the first day we got on. When I went to change it, I was trying to change it to the Wake, which is like the steak seafood restaurant on board. And they did not have any availability for the day that I'd booked. They said I could try to walk up later on in the cruise, which I did try again to do that. We ended up waiting for about 3 hours and still did not get a table. So highly recommend making sure that if you want a certain restaurant with Virgin, you get on when you can book it and book those out and take a look at those menus, because it was very hard for anyone on our ship. I talked to other people as well to change dining once you were on board, unless you were eating at the galley, which is their version of a buffet.
My pre-booking experience was a little bit different because we booked our cruise 2 weeks or something, 3 weeks before the cruise, at least my side. So we were only able to get some of the restaurants. And at least when I did the Virgin cruise, you had to change your dining right in the entranceway of the cruise ship. And is that where you went to, Brielle?
No, they had the changes in Razzle Dazzle. So you went in, there were people on a bench, and you just lined up in the restaurant.
That is so much better. But we were able to at least secure some of the dining at that point. And then there was a restaurant that we had to do like a walk up, which for us, we were able to do. And then what about for the Wish? Did you pre-book anything on the Wish?
I think we did book a Palo dinner on the Wish on Pirate Night, as my husband and I are not huge fans of that menu. So we were able to secure that even 2 weeks before the sailing. And yeah, so it was really convenient. My husband is also an introverted engineer. So we, as soon as get on the Wish, we go and talk to the dining people and ask if we have a private table. We were originally signed early dining, which doesn't matter to us. So we switched it to the later dining and we're able to get a private table for the two of us, which we find is usually accommodated if you're okay with the later dining.
Love team late dining. Well, that brings me into my next question. We are all frequent Disney cruisers. We all have our embarkation plan. I think we all follow pretty similar things that we do when we embark on a Disney cruise. How did boarding Virgin kind of throw that off for you? Did you still find, it was okay, let's get lunch, let's hit this? Like, what did you do kind of that first afternoon boarding?
Yeah, so on the Wish, we normally will go onto the ship. The first thing we do is go to the dining reservations team just to make sure that we have a private table, partially because of my food allergies and my husband being introverted. So we like the late dining to have a table alone together. And then we would normally go and have food on board and enjoy the pool until the room's ready. Whereas with Virgin, that was a little bit different because it is later arrival time. I think we had a 3:15 p.m. arrival time. So we went and got lunch off the ship. And then when we embarked, we just went to see if we could change one of our dinner reservations. We went up to the pool deck and kind of explored around the ship. Virgin on the top deck has some really neat, different gym equipment. They have some swings. They had a seesaw that we were playing on. So even though it's adults only, it's still really fun. They have like a basketball court, and they have the pool deck with a wellness pool and some hot tubs. So it's a really fun environment to be on Virgin. So there was a lot to explore around up on the top deck. They had a really cool looking gym. They even had a partial gym outside by the pool. So a lot of different options that you can do and play with if you're on board and you just want to try something different that is a little bit outside of the norm for Disney.
I would argue that some of their ship activities, there is more, frankly, for adults to do and more just things to keep you busy if you want to be kept busy on Virgin.
Yeah, totally. There was a bungee exercise class that I really wish I could have done, which I would recommend to anyone if you're going on Virgin. As soon as you get on the app, book that because you do have to pre-book it. I don't think it costs any money, but you do have to book it, and it looked so much fun. So I wish I had done that.
Well, let's move into staterooms. What kind of staterooms did you have booked on these sailings, and what were your thoughts between the two?
Yeah, so my husband and I are usually team inside cabin because he likes a dark cave. But on the Wish, the only thing that was left for us to book because it was so close was a guaranteed veranda. So we ended up with an extended family veranda on the Wish, which was beautiful. It's so bright to walk in there and see just how beautiful the veranda is and the new lights inside of the bathrooms and the mirrors that are lighted. It's a really gorgeous experience that feels like you're in Cinderella's royal suite. And then on Virgin, we did have an inside stateroom. So walking in there, it was what I would consider normal for even a Disney inside stateroom. They felt very similar. The only main difference that I noted was the storage was a lot less on Virgin, because I'm someone that likes to unpack and put my things away. I bring extra hangers to put things up. And I found that to be a challenge on Virgin because of the limited space. There was a lot more floor space, though. So if you like to open your suitcase, you'll be fine, but not the closet.
Yeah, you're right. There was like nothing if you want to put your clothes away.
Yeah. And Virgin has really cool amenities in their rooms. So I like that you could change the lights and have it be really fun. There's different settings that you can play with. So the rooms themselves are kind of cool and funky that you get to do things with. And my husband and I are indifferent to the split bathrooms, so that's not a factor for us on either of the cruise lines. It is nice sometimes to have that on Disney, but not a requirement for us. So that was my main concern with Virgin, was just the lack of storage space.
I think overall the bathrooms felt a little smaller to me on Virgin. Let's talk about the key difference between these ships. The bed on Virgin is garbage. Like Disney, hands down, is victorious in the bedding area.
Split the bed because it's, I think, 2 singles or doubles or whatever it is that they put together. So because my husband and I were sleeping together, we left it together, but you could swing one out to be on its own. So we had kind of like a little wooden bench type area that you could put stuff on.
Yeah. So the lack of like seating beside your bed is tricky, especially if you didn't have that outside space, which has a little bit more space.
And I will note too that me and my husband's room was even bigger than my sister-in-law's room because she was in a solo cabin. And hers, you walked in, there was a little desk vanity type situation. Across from that, you would find the bathroom. And then right beside the desk was the bed and a slanted roof. So it felt like you were kind of sleeping in an attic almost. They just tried to shove a bed in there and make it work for someone. So she said it was really cozy and fine, but I would definitely feel a little claustrophobic in there.
She had her own grown-up fort.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to comparing some spaces around the ship. First off, you already talked a little bit about the pool deck space. Are you pretty big like pool people on a cruise?
Yeah, my husband and I spend a lot of time in the adult area on the Disney ships. Love particularly the Magic and Wonders adult pool areas. The Wish definitely lacks that for us. I still make an effort to go to the hot tub. I love to do that in between dinings because there's usually nobody there, so I can just relax. But I did that this past time, and all you just hear is the Aqua Mouse repeating the same line over and over, which gets tiring after 15 minutes, just trying to relax. Even the pool on the Wish is like you can't swim laps, you can't really stand. That bench thing is really hard to sit on in that pool. So I'm wishing that they will do something about that for the Destiny.
Yeah, the single hot tub is the weirdest decision of like all of the Wish's choices.
Yeah. Comparing that to Virgin, Virgin had 4 hot tubs, which was amazing. I never had an issue with finding space. It had one main pool, which had kind of a shallow tanning end, which was deeper than Disney's by probably an inch or 2 if you compare that to the Magic or the Wonder that has like the not even a half an inch of water. So that was really nice and refreshing. And then they also had a wellness pool where you could kind of sit in it, but it was actual seats. It wasn't a lay down bench. You could sit in the water. It had some jets that looked like they could be turned on. And there were bars right beside the pool on either side. And also on the hot tubs. So the pools are on deck 15. There's 2 hot tubs on deck 15 with the wellness pool. And then there's 2 new hot tubs as well up on deck 16. And all of them have bars right near them. So you can easily grab a drink, grab some water. If you're there at the pool, it's very easily accessible, just steps away. So I really love that feature on Virgin. So I'd have to give it to Virgin for the win on the pool deck situation because there's just so many more options than on the Wish specifically.
What about some interior spaces on the ships? Where did you find you were hanging out on both ships, and what did you like about those?
Yeah, so on the Wish, I do a lot of trivia with my husband. So we would go to the Live Tunes trivia is definitely one of my favorites. Tiana's Bayou is just so beautiful. I love the New Orleans theming and the little lily pads everywhere. We did go to Hyperspace Lounge, which is cool. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but the theming in there is really neat. And I'm very excited to hopefully go on the Treasure soon to experience the Haunted Mansion bar. We've also went to Nightingale's, which is the piano bar on the Wish, and had some cocktails there, which were really fun and different. They were a little bit higher prices because of the theming of the cocktails, but it was really nice to sit and listen to music. And we like going to any kinds of like cooking classes or things like that on the Wish. So it's always really fun. There's always things you can do. Or if you just want to watch a movie in one of the theaters, we like doing that as well. So a lot of really nice options there. On Virgin, I found that we would sometimes go and explore the shops when we were out at sea. It was really fun. Virgin had a lot of different activities too, specifically at night. I found Virgin really came alive in the nighttime where they had their Scarlet Night, which is an event that you can go to when everyone dresses up in red. They have an entertainment team that will come and dance and engage with you. On the first night you embark, they have half an hour of free champagne during their sail away, and all the dancers are out coming and introducing themselves to you, asking for your name and saying hi. And so they had lots of opportunities to interact with that cast. There's also a casino on board. My husband and I are not gamblers, so we just walk through it. But if you're into that, I know Disney does not have a casino. And there was just a lot of like little trivias. They had some puzzling contests, speed puzzling. They had a couple of trivias, and they also have private karaoke rooms, which we unfortunately did not get to do this time, but I'm hoping that next time we go on a Virgin cruise, we'll book a karaoke room. You just have to sign up for it. So a lot of different options on Virgin. We also went to some of the bars. The theming was a little bit underwhelming, especially compared to Disney, but still really fun and a good experiences there.
So, and they also have in one of the indoor bars, like on one of the middle floors, like deck 5 or something, it's like a cool pub environment where they have like shuffle puck, and I believe they have a pool table, and they have like arcade games. So they just have a bunch of little stuff like that that's fun, that is different, and it's included. So it's just a different experience than Disney.
And then what about like main show entertainment?
Yeah, so the main show entertainment was a lot of the parties. So Scarlet Night was one of them where everyone dresses up and they have different dancers and entertainers. They have a pool party that night as well. So you can go up to the top deck and everyone's invited to go in the pool. There were some people in full red tuxedos jumping in the pool. So it was just like a fun time for everyone to kind of dance and mingle. There was also a siren presentation. Chris, you may know this better than I do, but you go into one of the theaters and it's all about the tale of Scarlet Night and learning from one of the mermaids what it's all about. I was expecting some kind of show when it was one person singing. So I think that's where my expectations with Disney are so high, with the shows being Aladdin and Little Mermaid or any of the other theater productions, that they're so well done that this felt so underwhelming to me on Virgin. But they also had a fun dance party like We Fancy. So everyone comes dressed in gold or your fanciest clothes and you all dance together. So there's a lot more of social, energetic entertainment that you're involved in versus going to sit down and watch a theater production, which my husband and I love both options. So it's just different in setting those expectations of what's going to be happening on the ships.
And I don't know if the entertainment changes or if it had changed. We definitely had ticketed entertainment that we went to in the evening. One of them was like a West Side Story type situation where, and their theater, it is not a traditional theater, and it has like movable seats where they can move seats in different configurations for it to work for their show. So like the West Side Theater show had like, teams pitted against each other. And from a sensory standpoint, some of that was tough for me because it was a lot of like hollering and cheering on the other team performing and, the battle between the people. And then there were a few other shows where they had performers that were more colorful in their performance. There's some like crazy fun, very random shows that are definitely adults only and that are very unique to Virgin.
Yeah, you bring up a good memory for me that we did go to the Misbehave show, which I think is one of the shows that you're talking about, which is just scoring points, the audience against each other, half of each other, trying to accomplish different things. So one of them was come take a selfie with us. So I ran up there and was the first person to take a selfie with the host. And they're just awarding different points. And at the end of the game show, somebody wins. And it's just super random and fun, but really entertaining. We could not stop laughing. Another show we went to, I forgot what it was called. I think it was called The Ship Show. So it was kind of a variety act, what I would compare with like a Vegas act, in that you had gymnasts on board, you had a magician, you had stand-up comedian type host and some dancers. So that was really fun to see the different variety. So again, just a totally different type of entertainment from what Disney offers, but really fun and engaging to be part of.
Well, who's hungry then? Let's talk food.
Yes.
So very, very different dining concepts, even from, I think, the rest of the cruise industry. Both of these cruise lines are really kind of doing their own thing. Just tell us a little bit about each of those dining situations and what your thoughts were on them.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'd start with the buffets, or Virgin's I wouldn't really call a buffet, but Disney, you have Marceline Market on the Wish, which is really neat to see the theming in there with Remy on the wall and tying it back to Walt's hometown roots. It's really neat. But I do find that buffet to be very chaotic a lot of the time, especially if you're going in the morning or on embarkation day. There can be a lot of people there. So I usually try to stick to the lunches on board the ship and it's usually just given to you on a plate. So on the Wish that they have the plexiglass and they serve you whatever's made up. And if you have an allergy, you have to find a coordinator to come and help you find something that's safe. They'll make it in the back and bring it out to you. Whereas on Virgin, they have the galley, which is their version of the buffet. And it's not buffet style. It's all made to order. And they had, I want to say 10 to 11 different stations of like sushi, ramen, tacos, breakfast, burgers, so many different options that you could choose from. And any station you wanted food from, you could just go up. If you don't have food allergies, you could just ask for what you'd like and they'll make it for you or give it to you. And if you do have food allergies, all of the crew on the ship, they all knew how to handle allergies. So I never had to ask for a coordinator. I just said, I have a gluten allergy. Could I please get a gluten-free cheeseburger and some fries that are made in a dedicated fryer? And they would go and get that for me or go tell the chef or whatever. I never had to worry about it. I never once felt uncomfortable or like anyone didn't know how to handle that. Everyone was phenomenal with those allergies, and being in such a big space with so many different food options was really cool to see that, okay, I can go over here and get a soup and go over here and get an ice cream or whatever you wanted. It was just a different experience and so neat to be able to come and get that food. And those French fries were the best cruise French fries I've ever had. So it was great.
Did they also have it where you could sit and have somebody bring you the food from the galley?
They did. They had a little flipper on the table, I want to say, of different options. And you just raise the red flag if you wanted someone to come over to your table and take your order. Usually we use that if we wanted a drink. They would come over and bring that to you. But yeah, you could order from the table if you wanted to.
Yeah, I thought that food was really good in there. I liked all the choices. I did also agree that we had zero issues with eating gluten-free on Virgin, and that as Brielle had said, that the servers were knowledgeable about it and were able to handle it. So I know that the tacos were my favorite. You literally can have breakfast all day long, anytime you want it. There's like a breakfast menu, which is just so fun to me. It's like you're going to the diner to get your breakfast at either midnight or 2 p.m. I love it.
Yeah, it was so nice. There's also a separate little pizza shop on board, which is so good. And yeah, the late night dining is great.
Were you able to eat at the pizza shop and the ice cream shop?
Yes, I was able to get a gluten-free crust at the pizza place. They put it on a separate pan for me. And at the ice cream place, they did open new containers for me, wash the scoops, and let me know which ones were gluten-free.
Excellent. Did you eat brunch on Virgin?
Yes, I did at Razzle Dazzle.
Oh, okay. So that's super fun. It has to be reserved. There's no extra cost. And I believe there's brunch also at the steakhouse. And so that is an option for people to be able to experience as well.
Yeah, I really like the brunch at Razzle Dazzle. Would recommend it to people. That gluten-free banana muffin was so moist. I don't think I've had a muffin that moist except for the Trader Joe's chocolate muffins. Those are also really good.
So you covered lunches on the blah, blah, blah. So you covered lunches on Virgin. What about lunches on the Wish?
Yeah, for the Wish, so we usually went to the Festival of Foods, which everyone loves. I've gotten some rice bowls from Donald's Cantina. I ask every time if they have corn tortillas. The answer is still no as of March of 2025, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe next time I'll just bring a tiny little factory sealed pack on board with me so I can make my own tortillas. So we'd eat there. I also tried the barbecue smokestack this time around. Got some pulled pork gluten-free, and I put it on top of a side of some gluten-free mac and cheese, which was really delicious. And then, yeah, also got like the burgers and the chicken tenders, which are so good. I think that was my only sad food point with Virgin, was that they didn't have gluten-free chicken tenders, whereas Disney does that so well. So I love the Festival of Foods. My husband loves the Festival of Foods. So we would usually eat there. Sometimes we would eat in the dining restaurant that was offering lunch that day if they had a good menu. I think one of the days I had a kids chicken Alfredo pizza on a gluten-free base, which was really good. So yeah, definitely take a look at the menu options and see what's going to be best for you and your family, because there's so many options. You just can't go wrong with food on the Wish.
Well, then let's jump into the big one, dinner time. What are your thoughts between these two cruise lines for your dining?
Yeah, so Disney Wish, I love all of the theming of Arendelle, 1923, and Worlds of Marvel. It's very cute to see the differences and notice all the Disney touches. The food menus are, of course, delicious. My husband's favorite is Arendelle, which I feel like is a hot take on this podcast, but he loves those meatballs. And the show is just so incredible, even for adults, to be able to see the live entertainment while you're dining. Also love the food at 1923 and Worlds of Marvel. We also had Spider-Man visit us at Worlds of Marvel. My husband hates the characters, so he ran out of there when Spider-Man was coming around as we were eating dessert. So Spider-Man sat down with me and ate dessert with me, which was a very cute little moment for us. I said he can be my new date since my husband doesn't want to anymore. So that's really cute. So I love all of the dining on the Disney ships for dinner and just making those connections with your service team as well. So even though it was only a 4-night sailing, we had Agna and Gina as our servers and assistant server. And I think Gina on the last night gave me like 4 hugs because she was like, "You guys were so cute. I don't want you to leave." Like, it was just so nice to be able to make that connection with someone and hope that we'll sail with them again and request them again. Comparing that to Virgin and the Valiant Lady, all of the restaurants, like we mentioned, you have to book ahead of time if you want to be guaranteed a spot. They are very different and the servers do not travel with you. So if you went to Pink Agave, it was really delicious because it's Mexican food, so I think I had a chicken enchilada, and the servers were all great. All the servers handle your allergies. There was usually always an appy entree and dessert available, and you can, of course, get multiple things if you want. So the food was definitely not lacking in flavor on Virgin. It was so flavorful. It was so fun, and I did like the theming on Virgin as well, even though it was just kind of traditional. It's a Mexican restaurant. It's an Italian restaurant. The Korean barbecue was also really fun too. So I did that gluten-free and they just prepared my food either on the grill ahead of time. And they also brought some for me afterwards once it had been contaminated with the appetizers. They brought me a separate plate of entrees that were safe for me. So it was really fun to be able to sit with other people and kind of make friends, which you don't experience as much on Disney unless you're seated with specific people that are close to your age group. So really fun to just experience something a little different, Virgin.
So I had made a note about your introverted engineer husband. How did he feel about Gun Bay? Because they seat you at a round table with others, and sometimes there's quite a few others. So how did your husband do with that forced
socializing? Yeah, so we did Gunbay on our first night after the deck party when there was the free champagne flowing. So I definitely think that helped, as my husband and my sister-in-law were definitely taking advantage of that time. We also did they have a drinking game when you first sit down with little shots of sake. So we all partook in that. So it was me, my husband, and my sister-in-law. And then there was 2 other couples that were together. So I think they were also like brother, sister-in-law types. So it was kind of fun to sit with them. I was chatting with the one woman who had kids and they had just come on for a little getaway. And it was nice to socialize with them. We kind of interacted and I sat in the middle since I am more of a social butterfly, and my husband just sat on the end and he did still interact, but they were just definitely having their own fun. It was always kind of moving and flowing with the different food that was arriving and going on. So there was never a dull moment where you felt awkward or weird sitting with other people. It was always just kind of like fun and lighthearted.
Love it. What was your highlight meal from each ship?
That is a great question. I think I'm going to go with on the Wish. I love 1923. It is delicious. I love getting salmon and I love all of their soups. Disney soups are my weakness. So if there is a leek and potato soup, it has my name written all over it. So those are always really fun. And then on Virgin, I'm going to say that it was Pink Agave. That chicken enchilada was so good. They also had like a chocolate tamale you could have for dessert, which wasn't too sweet if you don't like something that's going to just overload your system.
For the sit-down restaurants, I'll just say for Virgin, that was our favorite. It was just, the food was so flavorful. Like I can still envision those flavors now, like 3 years later. They were just so good.
Love it. What ports did you go on Virgin?
Yeah, so on Virgin, we did Key West, Florida, and we did Bimini, which is Virgin's private island. So it's cool to be able to compare another private island when we've only been on Disney's private islands so far.
Well, let's dive right into that then. What did you think of Virgin's Island on Bimini, and how did that compare to Castaway?
Yeah, so it was really cool to come off. We did have an excursion booked on Virgin's private island. They have a snorkeling with sharks. So my husband said, let's go do this. I said, okay, very hesitantly. Unfortunately, the day that we were there, it was extremely windy. So they did have to change course. We were not allowed to snorkel with the sharks because of the waves and how fast they were moving. They did take us to 2 other snorkeling locations. One had like an island or 3 little islands, and they told us a tale of 3 sisters that were fighting over someone. And then they took us to another, just kind of more open space to snorkel. It was a little bit unfortunate when you're looking forward to something so daring and different than other cruise lines offer. Hopefully we'll get to do that again, but it was still really fun. And then once we got back, I did want to check out the beach club at Bimini, which is their main part of the island, which has a pool and some different food and private little beach area. When we got back, we were docked at a little space where we had to, when you first get off the ship, you do have to walk a ways to, or you can take a tram, but my husband and I like to walk. So we walked up to get to our excursion. When we got back from our excursion, we didn't see any signage for like where the beach club was or how to get there. We saw like a direction arrow and people walking. So we're like, okay, we'll walk toward this beach club, which was a mistake because it is very, very far. Eventually, we did find a tram stop along the way. And thank goodness we got on it, because we would have been walking another probably 20, 30 minutes because it is very far. And there's not really sidewalk for you to walk on. It's kind of just roads and bushes and trees. So I think their signage definitely needs a lot of work there, but the beach club was really fun. They had a pool party in the afternoon where they throw in big floaties that are like oranges and unicorns and different things you can float on, all while the dancers are performing around you. They have their buffet has Caribbean style food. My husband and I did not eat there, but it looks really fun. And then I wish we had gone to the beach. I've heard it's comparable to Lookout's waters with the clear blues. I just kind of looked at it, but I need to try to go in next time. But it was really cool to see that beach club, but definitely take the trams if you're going to be going there because it is very far.
I think the beach might depend too on the time of year and the weather, because we had a very windy day as well. And like the ocean, it was actually too windy to even sit because of the way the beach club is set up. The sand was actually blowing up into the beach chairs. And so it also made the water pretty much not safe to go in. And then the food is Caribbean, as you mentioned, and they have lots of options for gluten-free, like most of the menu is gluten-free. But it is unique, and not all people might enjoy those options. So that would just be, if you're a picky eater, I would look at a menu. People will post pictures ahead of your beach day and decide how you want to lay out your day versus eating something more on the ship.
Is there any other comparisons between sailing these ships that we haven't covered that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, the other one that I would say that my husband and I chat about is the bars and drink package options. So I know Disney doesn't offer a drink package per se, but they do offer their drink of the days, which are around $7 a cocktail, which are fun. And then they offer other cocktails and drinks that are reasonably priced, around $9 to $13. Virgin also has different drink packages. So it's not per se you pay up to a certain dollar amount per cocktail. For us, we bought a $300 package and we got $50 free. So we got that bar tab that it sets that base. If you want to buy more, it goes onto your onboard account. If you want to not, then you have up to that amount to use, or you don't have to buy it. And they have different amounts. You get more free the more you spend.
And sometimes they have offers for included bar tab. So, and it's very specific for how you can spend it, but it also covers your coffee, right? And their coffee bar is way more reasonably priced than Disney.
And what I also liked about the cocktails that you could order on Virgin was that everything was included in their price. So the taxes and the tip were all included. You didn't have to sign anything, whereas on Disney, you have to wait for them to charge your band or your card. and bring it back to you. You have to sign it. Whereas on Virgin, they just tap your wristband, you take the drink, you go. It's so easy and flawless. They also at times had people walking around with different cocktails or shots if you were at different parties. So it made it really easily accessible to buy something, which is a brilliant design by them, and also just makes for a more easy, enjoyable experience when you're on board.
Let's talk for just a second, too, on cast members. A lot of the crew were from Disney. And it sounds like the crew are very casual, like their sleeves are rolled up on their shirt in the dining room. The crew are able to go to the coffee bar and get their own coffee. There was always crew in line getting coffee at the same time as the guests, which was really nice. And they're just much more casual. Like their language is sometimes more casual and colorful, but the service is still, to me, the same level that you would find on Disney or something like Celebrity. So it's that premium cruise line service in a much more casual way.
I would definitely agree with that the cast members that we did interact with were so friendly and so engaging. And yeah, it was nice to see them be not more relaxed, but in a sense that they could just be themselves. It was really cool. And another thing that I loved about Virgin was I felt like I made a lot more connections just in general with even people on the ship. I would strike up random conversations with the guests that were in line at the bar or around at different activities, whereas I don't feel like I do that as much on Disney because either I'm not around adults as much or they're off with their kids or at the bar areas, they're waiting to go pick up kids from the kids clubs. So I found like I made a couple of friends on Virgin, whereas that's not something that normally happens for me on Disney. So if you're kind of social or want to put yourself out there more, or even a solo cruiser and just want to experience cruising, I think this is a great place to try to be social and meet people and just talk with people and learn about what their experiences are cruising or just in life in general.
So talking pre-show, we actually know that you have since cruised Disney again, but do you have any plans or aspirations to cruise Virgin again?
Yeah, I definitely am eyeing a Brilliant Lady cruise. We do live in Seattle, and I know she's going to be sailing here next year. So I've got my eyes on her. I have a couple other cruises planned before that time comes. So I'm open to exploring all the cruise lines, would definitely consider a Virgin cruise again. It just depends on what we're kind of looking for in that cruise experience.
One other thing to point out about Virgin, especially with some of their itineraries that are either longer or to Europe, for example, they have really unique shore excursions. And we've had listener of the show and friend of ours, Amanda from Once Upon a Marathon on before. She actually has a highlight in her stories on Instagram of her Virgin Voyages cruise. She goes into extensive detail about the shore excursions and how they're just different and unique in a lot more small groups. So I think that this would be a line to check out if you were interested in a cruise to Europe or a more port extensive cruise as well. And then another person that I follow on Instagram had definitely stated before, Pixie Power Runner, that she found that with Virgin, especially in the longer cruises, like 10 days, it's not as much of the party vibe. And I wouldn't say that Virgin is a party vibe. You can find your party and you could avoid your party if you want as well. But she said it is overall a quieter environment for the longer extensive cruises. So just things to keep in mind. There's an agent in my office who is well into her 60s, and she absolutely loves Virgin. She loves other lines as well. She cruises Celebrity a lot. She cruises other lines, but like she and her husband keep going back to Virgin. The food is good, and, you know, for some of those reasons that make it a little bit more unique. So don't think that just because, I don't know, you think of maybe the loud music or things, that it's got to be that vibe everywhere. There are pockets that you can find of quiet and things like that so that you can enjoy that if you aren't into that, you know, nightclub scene.
Well, Brielle, what is next for you?
Yeah, so we actually have a very exciting, similar to like Christy just did, we're doing a Norwegian Fjords cruise in August. It is on the Norwegian Prima, so our first time on Norwegian, which we're very excited for. And then we have another Disney cruise coming up. We're doing the Transatlantic on the Fantasy in November. So a lot to look forward to this year.
Those are both some incredible itineraries.
Yeah, right?
Taking advantage of the no kids thing to the full extent right now.
I Understand that for sure. Well, we definitely hope that after some of those sailings, you choose to come back on and share those experiences with us.
That's for sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much for coming on. And before we take the show out, Brielle, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at glutenfree.disney.girly, and that's with an IE at the end, not a Y. All my food is there from my trips.
Awesome. And thank you again so much for coming on and have just absolutely phenomenal sailings this fall.
Thank you so much.
Well, Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me all over the internet at Pack Your Pixie Dust. If you are not working with a travel advisor and would like to work with me, Lake has set up a beautiful little link that says Work with Christy on our website in all the show notes. You can also just reach me at my website at packyourpixiedust.com. Lake, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at MouseGen. And you can follow the podcast at Instagram and Facebook on DCL Podcast. And of course, check out more information about us at dclpodcast.com. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Brielle for coming on and sharing her adventures on both Virgin Voyages and the Disney Wish. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Kristen, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.